Okay, let's jump right into this explainer because we are tackling something absolutely crucial today. We're going to explore how presenting broad data, just throwing numbers at people, is actually the single biggest mistake you can make when you're fundraising. I mean, we've always been told that data is king, right? But what if I told you that letting your numbers speak for themselves is the exact reason your startup keeps getting passed over by investors? Today, we are going to completely unpack a framework that takes those dense, honestly kind of confusing metrics and transforms them into an undeniable, totally compelling narrative of inevitable success. Picture this for a second. Take a founder like Alex Chen. Alex had an incredible 40% month-over-month growth rate. He had 87% customer retention. On paper, his fintech startup was an absolute rocket ship, growing from $50,000 to $850,000 in revenue. And yet, he faced 47 consecutive rejections. 47. Why? Because every single time he walked into a pitch, he just brought a collection of disconnected metrics. The investors would nod, they'd ask a few technical questions, and then they'd pass. He didn't have a story, he just had a spreadsheet. Now, here is a staggering figure that really puts this into perspective. Recent analysis reveals that startups armed with a compelling data story are 340% more likely to actually secure that funding. And it doesn't stop there. They achieve their growth 10 times faster than founders who just throw raw metrics at the wall and hope something sticks. Changing how you present your data, it's not just a nice little design upgrade for your deck, it is literally a fundamental driver of whether your business survives or dies. Which brings us to Section 1, the data story crisis. Right now, there is a massive $47 million storytelling gap out there that is actively destroying startup fundraising potential. Why is this happening? Because roughly 73% of founders treat data presentation as a purely technical exercise. And man, the fallout from that is severe. We are talking about an average of $470,000 totally wasted on extended runway burn. It translates to an 18-month delay in scalable growth simply because your stakeholders aren't aligned. It even hits your internal team. You end up with 67% higher employee turnover just because your own people don't actually understand the company's growth narrative. It's a devastating domino effect. Let's dive into Section 2 and look at exactly why raw metrics fail. So, what is actually happening in the minds of these stakeholders when you hit them with a wall of impressive numbers? Take Sarah Kim's SaaS productivity startup, for example. She had 60% monthly growth, 180K in ARR, and 127% net revenue retention. Objectively, amazing. But her pitch completely fell flat during mock trials. Why? Because you have to remember, investors are looking at hundreds of these metric sets every single month. If you don't provide the narrative glue, you leave room for their imagination. And let me tell you, investor imagination almost always defaults to risk and negativity. They couldn't see the strategic narrative she had hidden inside her metric dump. Think about the contrast between a confusing metric dump and a crystal clear story. Imagine throwing a raw, chaotic chart of ticket trends at someone. It forces them to do mental gymnastics just to figure out what you're asking for. But when you transform that exact same data with a bold, clear title, something like, "Please approve the hire of 2 new employees," and you pinpoint exactly where people started quitting and where the backlog exploded, suddenly it tells an undeniable story. It demands a specific action right then and there. So how do we fix this? That brings us to Section 3, the Scale Storytelling Framework. This is the exact framework that helped Alex Chen pivot from 47 rejections to closing a $2.3 million Series A in just 6 weeks. It starts with the S in scale, situation context. This is all about positioning your metrics against the broader market. Instead of just walking into a room and saying, "Hey, we have 89% retention," you frame it. You say, "Look, while the rest of the industry is struggling with a 34% churn rate, we've achieved 89% retention because we actually solved a fundamental workflow problem." Suddenly, your metric isn't just a number floating in space. It's absolute proof of a massive competitive advantage. Next up is the C, which stands for challenge resolution. You have to show how your data directly obliterates a market hurdle. Notice the difference here. A raw metric just says, "Our customer acquisition cost is $89. Okay, cool, whatever. But the narrative version? It explains, traditional marketing costs $340 per customer, but our viral coefficient of 1.4 drops our KAC to $89 because we completely solved shareability. Do you see how powerful that cause and effect narrative is? It completely validates the engine of your business model. Moving right along to A for aspirational future. Look, investors don't just invest in where you are today. They are investing in where you are going.
You've got to show them that your current 340% enterprise growth isn't just a lucky fluke. You have to tie those current metrics to the future to show it's a clear, undeniable indicator that you're on track to capture 12% of a $4.7 billion remote work market by 2026. You are making your future success feel practically inevitable.
And this naturally sets up the L, which stands for logical progression. This is all about linking your metrics together into a sequential chain reaction. High active users drive a viral coefficient, right? Which then lowers acquisition costs, which then turns unit economics positive, which finally allows for sustainable growth. When you present your metrics as this linked, causal chain, your early success literally guarantees your later profitability. It's like watching dominoes fall. Finally, we reach E for evidence-based validation. Your internal metrics are awesome, but they need external muscle. If you walk in and claim you have 127% net revenue retention, you better back that up with public statements or rock-solid testimonials from enterprise customers confirming that you are, in fact, mission-critical infrastructure. External proof points transform your internal claims from, oh, that's nice, to undeniable, market-validated facts. Okay, Section 4, the 90-day transformation. Let's talk application. So, how do we actually put this into practice? The beauty here is that you don't have to hit pause on your fundraising to do it. It is a highly structured 3-month sprint. In days 1 through 30, you run a deep metric audit and build that core story foundation. Then, in month 2, you restructure your pitch decks and stress test them with friendly advisors. And finally, in month 3, you roll this out and train your entire team so everyone, from sales right down to engineering, is speaking the exact same compelling data story. Moving on to Section 5, industry-specific data storytelling. Listen, generic stories are absolute deal killers, so we need to add a layer of real nuance here. What an investor looks for in a software company is completely different from what they want to see in healthcare. Your narrative has to shift based on your sector. If you're a SaaS founder, you absolutely must emphasize platform effects and net revenue retention. But if you're in fintech, your data story has to prioritize trust, security, and how you overcome regulatory friction. Health tech, your metrics need to prove clinical outcomes. You have to speak the specific, nuanced language of risk and reward for your exact industry. And finally, Section 6. Measuring your story's ROI. Ultimately, the goal of all this hard work isn't just to have a prettier slide deck to show off. So how will you know your new data story is actually moving the needle? You are going to see massive, measurable business impact. Startups that properly implement the scale framework typically see a 300 to 400% improvement in investor meeting conversions. Seriously. You'll also see drastically reduced due diligence times because investors simply aren't confused anymore. You'll even see faster customer acquisition and far better strategic partnerships, all because everyone finally understands exactly what makes your company so special. I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought to really challenge your current pitch. Ask yourself this, honestly. Does your growth trajectory represent an inevitable transformation or just temporary traction? Because let's face it, in a world where almost every startup can script together some impressive numbers, the company that wins the funding, attracts the best talent, and dominates the market is the one whose data proves that their ultimate success is absolutely inevitable. Take a really hard look at your deck today and start telling the story your data actually deserves.